This episode of Powerhouse is brought to you today by Poly.
When you're talking to your agents and you're talking about the market and kind of the challenges that are happening today, are you thinking about mindset and injecting fun into your discussions? I don't mean unrealistic fun. I mean being more positive overall. Today, I spoke with Sarah Reynolds. She is the CEO of EmpowerHome with Keller Williams. We talked about some mindset shifts that she's made recently to empower her team to really boost their production without getting too depressed about the market or any of the challenges going on right now. And it's starting to work. She's seeing results of that already. So she'll give you her story. Enjoy the podcast. Sarah, welcome to the podcast. It's been a year since we've talked, I think.
Yeah, I think even more than that. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm going to jump right into it. I mean, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your team. Obviously, it's been a little bit of a challenging market. And a lot of teams and brokerages have been scaling back, but you've been in growth mode. So how are you kind of approaching growth in these types of conditions?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think it's on the minds probably of every leader across the real estate industry right now. It looks like so far this year, we're actually pacing even less in terms of home sales nationwide, which who would have ever thought that we would be pacing less than the last couple of years, because it's been a hard couple of years. And, you know, in 2022, when the market first started shifting, so that was when mid-year is when we first started seeing the numbers go down. I spent a lot of time with the team on like making sure that they knew what was going on in the market, making sure that they were aware that there's been a shift, and educating them. And honestly, I learned through that what not to do. Because what ended up happening is everyone got in their head and started being almost a victim to the market versus looking at ourselves and saying, okay, how can we compete with ourselves a year ago, and almost ignoring it. So I had one of my leaders a couple weeks ago started talking about the market, and I stopped her and I said, we're not going to do that here. We're literally going to not talk about the market. And she said, well, it's important for us to know so we can educate our sellers. I said, oh, absolutely. We want to educate our sellers. And we're not going to start our training talking about market data because we make our own market. And it's really how we have gone back into growth mode over the last year is really that, like protecting my mindset. Like I'm not reading like doom and gloom articles right now. I'm protecting my mindset. I'm looking at our business a year ago, and I'm competing with us from a year ago. And so every week, are we on pace to help serve more families than we did the same week a year ago? And just blocking out the noise. I think it's so critical right now for our leaders to be protecting their mindset, and that's what we've been doing, and it's working so far. So yeah, I mean, versus the alternative.
That makes so much sense. I mean, it's just kind of like too much news, and then you're just depressed, right? It's kind of it's the same thing with the housing market news. You know, I don't want to be depressed. I'm just going to pretend it's you have to know some, obviously.
Yes.
But I think there are several pretty fair and balanced, like Logan Motoshami does a great job of kind of talking about the opportunities and the positive side of it. So if you focus on those, it makes a lot of sense for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think focusing on what we control, right? Like we don't control what's going on in the market. We control what we do and the actions that we do. And if we're doing more actions than we were a year ago, then we're going to win. If we do less actions, we're not. So I think that's the key, is focusing on what we control versus what we can't control.
And are there any specific like strategies or innovations or anything that you're heavily like leaning into to kind of build momentum or keep momentum going for your team?
Yeah, so we are every single month, every single week, we are doing a different contest. So we are doing our best to make it fun because I think most agents, when they get their real estate license, they get it. And when you talk to them about why they got their real estate license, a lot of times it's like freedom and to be independent contractor and to have, and fun is part of it. And I think many times, especially when a market is shifting or has shifted, that we lose the fun. And one of the strategies that we've done this year versus in years past is, instead of like as an example, 2 months ago, I found that our average fee had gone down compared to the same quarter. So it was for first quarter of the year compared to the same quarter a year ago. And the old Sarah, I would say, would have gotten in front of my agents and been like, this is our fee and you guys need to collect it. And this Sarah of this year, in terms of implementing strategies that are working, is we did we called it a raise yourself rumble. Whichever location could give themselves the largest raise in their fee ended up getting their entire broker fee paid for the month of May. So anything that went under contract, they had a free cap. All their broker fees were paid for. And we had one location, the location that won in Dallas, Texas. They ended up, it's almost a 20 grand prize that was given out. And we made it fun versus me being in front of them and being like, you're not doing this right. You're not doing that right. And so one strategy that we're implementing that's working is making it fun again, having contests, having games, and making what's fun about real estate fun again. So.
I love that. And, I want to backtrack a little and just have you talk a little bit about your company. Just give a brief, so that everyone knows who you are and what you do. I'll do a little intro later, but,
Yeah. So I am the CEO of EmpowerHome. We are in 10 locations, and right now we're ranked number 5 in the country across all brokerages. We're number 1 in the largest brokerage in America, Keller Williams, in terms of teams. In our DC Metro team, which is where I'm recording this right now and where our headquarters is, we serve about 100 families a month. And so depending on the year, we're anywhere between 1,000 to 1,200 families served a year just in that one location. And then we've expanded and grown to 9 other locations. And right now we've got about 170 agents.
Great. So I want to talk about some current trends. Obviously, NAR's Clear Cooperation, new option, the delayed marketing, is causing waves everywhere, with companies, being out there telling how they feel, what they agree with. Some people like private listings, some people don't. It's been a huge hot button issue, and I wanted to get your take on that, especially from a consumer perspective. I know Keller Williams hasn't officially really taken a stand, but how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I know that KW is working on a stand on it. I was interviewed by the new CEO about a month ago on this topic as they're, collecting data and figuring it out. For me, and what the first question that I was asked was, how often do I, as a rainmaker of agents and coaching agents every day that are meeting with sellers every day, like how often do I think about Clear Cooperation? And my immediate response was, I never think about Clear Cooperation. And I think the foundation of that thought is it's got to be about the client. At the end of the day, all of us, if we're in the real estate industry, at the end of the day, we serve buyers and sellers. No matter your role, no matter if you own a brokerage, no matter if you're even in the mortgage company, like you serve buyers and sellers. And anytime that we make policies or things that are about us versus the client, we're going to end up losing. And I feel strongly, by meeting with thousands of sellers, like I've sat at the kitchen table of thousands of sellers, that some sellers want their home to sell without going on the open market. There's situation after situation of sellers that do. Now, do they end up getting sometimes less money? Sure. But they know that, and they actually choose that because they don't want the stress, right? It's always every client's trying to decide: do I want stress, a little bit of stress, or do I want convenience and less money?
Yeah,
right. And depending on the client situation, if we make it about what the client wants and us serving and listening to our clients, then our industry will win. The minute we don't, and we make it more about us, which I believe clear cooperation is more about the fellow agent versus about the client, we're going to lose. And so that's my opinion on it.
Yeah,
Let's keep serving clients.
Yeah. The last time we did a podcast had to be 4 or 5 years ago, I think.
So.
And so a lot has transpired since then, as far as your company and the growth, So talk to me about some of the biggest leadership lessons you've learned over those years.
Yeah, this is a big one, because honestly, we could talk a long time about this. I've probably grown more in the last few years since the last time I recorded that podcast than ever in my career and or life. I think the biggest one, in 2022, up until 2022, I retained once an agent was with me for over a year, no one left. So I didn't part ways with them and they didn't leave. We knew that we were together. 2022, I woke up one day and I had, in a matter of 3 months, I had a few of my top producers, like my number one top producer, made the decision to leave. And at the time, it was everyone else's fault, right? It was the agent's fault and the ones that were leaving, and they took us for granted, and all of the excuses. And then about a year removed from that, I started really realizing that I was the one that needed to grow and needed to learn. And my biggest lesson is to not take for granted the people that are literally hustling on the ground. If we're not the ones out showing homes, then someone's got to do that. Someone's got to be out there showing houses. Someone has to be out there on appointments Saturday nights and away from their families. And they actually provide me a job. My agents provide me an opportunity to lead them. And I started taking them for granted. I wasn't as grateful for them. I stopped showing them gratitude. And I mean, 5 years ago, if you would have ever, if you said this is a lesson I was going to learn, I would look at you and be like, you're crazy. I will never not be grateful for my people. And my biggest lesson now, looking back, is gratitude for those that are out there making it happen and never taking what they do for granted. And it's been quite the journey over the last year. All of them have come back. So every agent that left came back, and it's a story of forgiveness and grace, and all of us learned. But my biggest lesson is that, what my Meemaw said is, for years she used to say, Sarah, don't get too big for your britches. And I never thought I would get too big for my britches, but I did. And I'm humbled, and I pray that I will always show gratitude for my people. So.
Yeah. I mean, when you grow as quickly as you did, you kind of get wrapped up in other things, and things that you used to do kind of fall to the wayside, right? And you don't realize it until something like that happens, where someone, a big person, big producer leaves, and you're like, what? Nobody's ever left me. It kind of takes sometimes it takes those big moments to really shock you into introspection, right?
And I think the big thing that led to that too, you're spot on, Tracey. And I think the big thing that led to that for me was I was just moving so fast, and when you're moving fast, you actually can't show gratitude for people, because if you think you're too busy to sit and have lunch with them after a team meeting, right? After a broker meeting, you're too busy because you have too much to do. Right. And that was me. I was too busy. It was going from one thing to another and not pausing, and them hearing my voice, them getting a hug from me and recognizing all that they're doing, and just slow down. Even if you're growing fast, your time needs to slow down with your people.
Yeah. Oh, I could see that. I think that's life in general is,
True.
a lot of times you kind of catch yourself like, rushing through life when you're not really present. It's the
Yeah.
same thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. So are there any other kind of aha moments that you've had in your career that, maybe in the last year kind of caused you to, maybe it wasn't a bad thing, maybe it was a positive thing that really caused you to innovate, or do something different and that really worked?
Yeah. About 9 months ago, I realized, so when we first started developing Empower Home, Empower Home's foundation is on reverse prospecting. So we've
Mhm.
got 39 different lead gen pillars that go out. And then we have an inside sales agent department that's calling and booking appointments for our agents. And then we've got Empower Home Services has about
Mhm.
100 employees. So we've got HR department and finance and all of the things, right?
Mhm.
It's a beast of a company. And about 9 months ago, I was the leader, the CEO of Empower Home as a whole. And I woke up one day and I said to my husband, like, I'm miserable. I was so unhappy. And it dawned on me, like, the whole reason why I built Empower Home Services and all of those departments is to serve the agent. Like,
Mhm.
I wanted to keep agents, and I still, my passion is keeping agents with the right heart, with the right commitment to serve people in the industry. Okay, that's like the core of who I am, and that's what I wanted to do. I built these departments to serve agents, but
Mhm.
I woke up last year and I said, wait a second, like, I'm getting further and further removed from the agent.
Mhm.
Like, I'm no longer leading them. I'm now leading an HR department, and I'm now leading like a corporate, it felt like a corporation versus a team family. Like, we're going to help agents stay in the game and serve lots of families. And I think, and I made a big decision, and I, like, stepped down from my day-to-day CEO role of Empower Home Services. And I said, I'm going to lead the agents. And I took back a role of our sales leader and said, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm passionate about. That's why we built this. That's why we're here.
Mhm.
And I think the biggest, if you want to call this innovation, I'm not sure, but like, running after your joy and what brings you happiness in your career in this industry, because there's so many things you can do, right? There's so many routes you can take in leadership. Following what you do best and your joy will produce the results for your company of growth. And I made that scary decision to lean into coaching and guiding our leaders of our agents and coaching our agents every single
Mhm.
day versus leading the corporation, the company, and then put someone else in position to lead the company, to lead Empower Home Services. And that's when we started growing again. And so I don't think it's an accident, right? That when you chase
Mhm.
after what you're passionate about, good stuff happens. So I
Yeah,
don't know if
and
that's
it's
innovative.
funny. I just had a discussion with Mark Willis, at KW, and he's now the chief leadership officer. Was the CEO, second time CEO, and we had this very same discussion. Like, he chose to step back, and because his passion was really working with the brokers and working with, leaders, and basically finding that next generation of leaders. So and I could hear the passion in his voice when he was telling me about it, just like with you. So I definitely understand that.
He had one of the biggest influences on the decision for me.
Hmm.
I had a call with him and I was telling him that, I'm at this crossroads. I'm not sure what to do. And he said, you are a magnet for agents.
Hmm.
Like, you come into a room, they listen to you, they learn, they grow. Like, no one will replace that. And so other people can lead these other things, but
Hmm.
you need to be following your passion. And then I saw him at Keller Williams family reunion in February, and we were talking about the decision
Hmm.
for him. And he said, I pulled a Sarah. And I said, that's awesome. I was like, I'm so, and you could see him more
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
Absolutely. So how do you keep challenging yourself and your team to innovate and grow?
Oh, I first and foremost, I think it really matters who you get into business with.
Mhm.
You know, one of the things that we look for when we're hiring agents is, do they have a growth mindset? How do they handle change, and what pattern in their life have they been able to adjust change? I mean, we're
Mhm.
right now living in the largest group of changes in our industry, maybe in history.
Mhm.
I mean, buyer agency was probably the second, but everything that's
Mhm.
going on in the industry over the last year or two, like massive changes.
Yeah.
And if someone doesn't have it in them to accept change and adapt quickly, they just won't make it. And so to me, it's in who you hire, hiring people that have the values of growth, hiring people that always want to be learning and growing, no matter how many families they serve, right? There's no room for ego at Empower Home. Like if it's all about them and all that they've accomplished, and they want to tell me all these things that they've done, that's probably not an Empower Home agent.
Yeah.
Because we based it on, we hire to the values that we're looking for. And then it's easy to have growth. It's easy to innovate. It's easy to change quickly when you are hiring based on those qualities to begin with.
Do you find, because of all the turmoil or, changes, maybe not turmoil, but changes in the industry, do you find that you're seeing a different kind of agent emerge?
I wouldn't say yet.
Okay.
I would love for you to ask me that question a year from now, and I would hope my answer is yes, because what will happen is we will see more people rise up that names that we've never heard of right now, will rise up because they know no different.
Yeah.
Right. So many times I was just at a top producers lunch with my top agents for the DC Metro location. And one of them, he's been with me about a decade. And he said, it looks like we're struggling the most with helping people unlearn versus helping them learn. And that's really, you bring in agents now that they know no different than, like, with all the fee collection stuff that's going on, like brand new agents now, like they don't know what happened 2 years ago. Like they're learning what to do today in today's world. And so we're going to see a lot rise up. I'm not seeing them yet, but we will.
Okay. Yeah.
sure.
I can't wait to see the transformation. I do think there's going to be a transformation in the industry. I don't necessarily think it's fewer agents necessarily, but we'll see. I don't know. That hasn't happened yet. So
I know.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you on that. In terms of, I'm not sure if it's going to end up being fewer agents. I think it's going to be, sometimes the older dogs need the new dogs to teach them what to do.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a lot of that.
Yeah. So with all these new models coming into the market, and obviously the flat fee companies are rising pretty quickly. I mean, we've had a couple that within 3 years, LPT is on the top 10 and the RealTrends verified. Have you shifted your strategy, or has your company shifted their strategy to compete, or do you really just feel like it's more of there's plenty of to go around and we just have to focus on our stuff?
Yeah, I would say we have not changed. We have been, so 10 years ago, no, more than that now, in 2011, I started really examining the way that agency was done with fee collection. And I come from a business background, so I studied business in college, and I was used to looking at our industry like from a business standpoint, not from necessarily what the industry does. And I said then in 2011, like, buyer agency was a new thing in the early 90s. But the compensation never changed, even though before that, everyone represented the seller, which was why the seller paid everybody, right? Yeah. And in 2011, I was sort of the disruptor in my market when I separated them. Like we had a fee for a listing, we had a fee for our buyer representation, and we negotiated them separately. We did it in the buyer agreement, in the listing agreement, and we figured it out. And I got so much slack in my market for that. Like, I mean, tons of posts about how unethical I was and all of these things. And now we're going right there to where it should have been this way to begin with. Whoever is getting the fiduciary responsibility, the fiduciary representation should be the one that is paying, because they're getting represented, right? And if we separate them versus combining them, which is what our industry has done for so long, then that's how the consumer wins. That's also how we win. And so we have not had to make a lot of adjustments because it's been the way we've been operating for quite some time, and we're doing great with it. We did have a little bit of a dip quarter 1, as I shared, in terms of fee collection, but we're back up now after our contest. So
great.
Yeah.
What are some big overarching trends you're seeing in the industry right now that might cause you to shift gears or maybe embrace some other innovation?
I think there's a little bit too much false optimism right now.
Okay.
And I know that sounds like I started out saying how much fun we're having. So it sort of sounds like opposite than that. But we are experiencing quite the shift with days on market. Most of all 10 of the markets that we're in, days on market is now double what it was. And so I think what we're going to start seeing, and what we're working hard on leading the way, is more programs and consumer programs around quickness of sale. Whereas for years you've been hearing more innovation around pricing, right? Like prices or discounts or I actually think as days on market increases, we're going to see less of that and more innovation around programs for consumers around speed, because that's now going to become the most important thing to the seller. Is, can you promise a certain amount of time that you're going to sell my house? Because for, I don't know how many years now haven't had to do that. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's true. There, probably more staging, more, repairs, more of all of that to, curb appeal, more of that being done just to get a house on the market to really boost its presence. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure. And I'm in Florida, so we're going through it apparently. I haven't seen it in my neighborhood yet, but I'm sure it'll come here. So
Florida, we're in Orlando. In Orlando, year over year is about 10% down. Yeah. So, which is one of our most significant locations in terms of,
So I'm in Heathrow. We have not really noticed. There are some more listings than usual on the market now in Heathrow. Before it was like 2 or 3 listings, and that's all we had. But my neighbor sold for a really good price still. Prices haven't, I think it's hyper local, right? So it really just depends on the specific neighborhood, the specific community, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That's the thing about real estate is you can literally be the same street on the same street. But if one backs to power lines and the other side doesn't, there's a difference in value. And so it's very hyper local to the house.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. So my final question is just, what's next for EmpowerHome?
What's next is continue on our mission. So we are on a mission to serve 100 families a month in each of the locations that we're in. And we are staying focused on that each and every day. I wake up and I say, how can I help my agents serve more families? And how can we make sure we have the right agents to serve those families? And so to continue our mission of serving 100 families a month, to one day give back $1 million to worthy causes in each community that we serve. And so that's what's next.
I love that. Well, thank you, Sarah, for joining the podcast. We really appreciate having you on.
Yeah. And I can't wait. I think I'm going to see you in a few weeks.
Yes, you will. I'll be there.
Okay. Bye.
Sounds good. Thanks.